submitted for your consideration. Man has always challenged nature, thinking that they can tame the elements. But what happens when nature changes the rules and fights back? This is a Nature vs. Man 2 for One Literary License podcast episode, exploring science fiction and horror, and weighing the outcomes of a dying planet, with your co-hosts, Keith Chalco, John Wilson, Vicky Ray, and Jesse Foltz. Man will forever be changed.
Hello, welcome to Literary License Podcast, and today we're doing the 2002 British post-apocalyptic horror drama called 28 Days Later, and the sequel 28 Weeks Later, which I want to keep calling 28 Months Later for some reason.
You do. I know. I was like,
if it took 28 months for them to remake the next one.
So before we get started, let's find out who's with us. First, we have Vicky Ray. Hello, Vicky.
Hey, everybody.
And John Wilson. Hello, John.
Hi, folks.
And myself, Keith Chalco. And before we go any further, let's find out what we've been up to since last time we spoke. And starting with John, what have you been up to since last time we've seen you?
I have been house hunting, trying to find a new home. It is the time to move out of the city. I've been here for 18 years in New York City, and though it has been sweet, it is time for me to move on. So I've been focusing on that. I also finished watching Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, the adventures, how do you say
Sabrina.
it? Adventures of Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
The Chilling Adventures of
Because I don't want to be confused by the original. It was okay. I think the ending could have been better. I
didn't like the ending at all.
I think it just could have been better. And I think it just, you try to wrap things up so quickly and finish things.
That was pretty abrupt ending, kind of, sort of. I didn't see that one coming.
I did like the season, though. I thought it was fun and just really whimsical.
The Eldritch Terrors.
Yeah, and I hope that they continue to do something else. I think it'd be great for them to explore other avenues if they're, potentially going to do another series. And the other thing is I just finished Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which was fantastic. The storytelling in it is beautiful. I cried multiple times. It's the new Zelda game, but it's the mechanics are it's a fighter's game, but it's Hyrule Warriors, so you can play any of the characters, but there's this beautiful story that's involved in that ties in sort of Breath of the Wild, which is a beautiful in itself. But they do a great job, again, not trying to spoil anything. They do a great job doing a side off that hopefully leads to something else down the road. So that's it for me.
I mean, Sabrina, I've only watched the first three, but I have to sit there and say they don't look like they're enjoying themselves this season. Do you know what I mean? There's always there's this closeness and there's a familiarity with them, and you can tell that they're filming it and they're really getting into it and they're all having a lot of fun. And this one, I don't know, it's kind of lacking some kind of camaraderie.
Wait till you get towards the mid of the fourth season. You see that just a little bit more. I think you're right.
Yeah, you do see it later. I think one of the biggest problems is it's good for Sabrina to be precocious, but she sometimes is very annoying. And you get to each episode and you're like, she's the motivator for bad things to happen. And you're like, really, like, why can't just bad things happen? But she becomes a motivator for that. And
everything, especially in this season.
Yeah. I love the aunties. The aunties are fantastic. I love each of those characters. In fact, I wish they would just do a show with them because they would be fantastic.
Oh God. Yeah.
Well, we were having,
you never know. That's how they kind of left it.
Yeah. I mean, we had a conversation about this at the last podcast. And I have to sit there and say that I think it has the problem when you have a show that's named after a main character, whether it's Buffy or Sabrina or so on and so forth, is that you always have that one, the main character always becomes always annoying. Like Buffy I loved Buffy, but Buffy was really annoying at times. And it's like, it got to the point where it's just like, come on, I'd rather see someone else than see Buffy go through her. I'm so da. And I think maybe that's probably...
they victimized her so much.
Well, she played the reluctant hero overly. Like, you get to a point where you accept your destiny, move on, fight the bad guys, but she became like Keith was saying, was every season became, I don't want to do this, why am I doing this, I have to do this, and then she dies, and then she comes back, and then she's like, I don't want to do this, how come I'm doing this, why am I doing this, and
telling your friends that you don't know what it's like, and
you don't understand how it's a great power with great responsibility. Okay,
and then so you always end up having all these strong supporting actors supporting this main character who's moaning all the time, and that's Sabrina's a little bit like that as well.
Yeah, you might be right on that note.
Yeah.
So what about yourself, Vix? What have you been up to?
I don't know. I've been getting into all these weird Australian zombie flicks. I kind of am liking them. They're really the Australians are great, and the blood cannons and everything. Did
you watch Brain Dead with Peter Jackson? The Peter Jackson film?
Yeah, I saw that one too. But I watched what was it called? Wormwood.
Oh, Wormwood's good. Wormwood's
really
good.
I was like, I didn't think I was going to like it, but I couldn't stop watching it. The zombies were fantastic. And I liked how, they made that main character. She's like the zombie queen thing. She was controlling all the zombies towards the end. And what else did I watch? Oh, I started watching Stephen King's Stand on CBS All Access, even though I didn't pay for that, but I found new and exciting ways to watch online. But
me too.
Same, yeah.
But I was all geared up to hate it, but I'm really actually liking it. And his name's eluding me for Flag.
Alexander Skarsgård.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love him. Perfect Flag. I love him. I'm already in love with him. But and I finished watching Sabrina. I was kind of I liked it, but towards the end I thought it was too abrupt the way they try to finish it up. And then I watched The Cured, which was a kind of a different take on a zombie apocalypse. It was about how they these people were zombies prior, but they were cured, and there was like 5 to 20,000 they couldn't cure. And it was about how they were released back into the population and how everybody looked at them like scum and whatever. It's them, how they're.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they didn't want they didn't want no parts of these people that were re-released, that when they found a cure to the zombie apocalypse, but the thing is with the Cured is they remember being zombies and they remember doing what they did to people. It's kind of a weird sleeper movie, but people might like it. And for some weird reason, I watched The Devil's Pass. It was about the those hikers that disappeared in that Russian forest. I'm losing the Ural Mountains. And they never found out what happened to them.
They just disappeared, or?
Yeah, they just disappeared in 1952, I think. They found their bodies like a mile away from camp. It was just weird, and they think it could have been anything from aliens to the
that's the one that it was all snowy, and then and some of them had their clothes on, and some didn't have their clothes on. And that one.
Something like that, yeah. But it was interesting. It was interesting, and I watched Quarantine because how when you get on, especially Amazon Prime, it says customers also watched. Yeah. So it's like, it's like, oh well, this looks good. So that's what I've been
Quarantine's the U.S. remake of Wreck, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. But it was pretty good. But I'm waiting for the next edition of The Stand because I'm already a captive fan. So, What about you?
Myself, I started watching The Stand. I do like it. I think it's cinematically a lot better than the original TV movie.
Well, of course.
The only problem I have is sort of thing is that I'm not fond of the bouncing about back and forth.
No, I don't think it's linear like me and you were talking about.
Yeah, I think if it was linear, I think that the virus that takes over the world and starts killing off 99% of the population, I think would have a bit more meaning to it and has a little bit more. Because I have to remember, when I read the book, The Stand,
right?
The best part of
it's all about Captain Trips, yeah.
And what how it spreads, because you got the guy escapes with his family, and then he stops at a gas station, and then he meets this person going to Chicago who's getting on a plane, and you can see how it starts spreading, and that person talks to this person, that person, and you see the whole web, and it gives you the full impact. But here, where they're bouncing back and forth from the story,
it's confusing. Like I said, if you didn't see the first one or you didn't read the book, you might get a little lost.
I think the first one too bounced around, and I think it's also hard because unless you literally timestamp or place stamp everything, it's like this is what's happening here, this is what's happening here, this is what it does get really confusing.
Well, they say 5 months prior or whatever.
Yeah. So what they do here is they take each character each chapter is a character. So like Franny, for instance.
Yeah.
So basically, it starts off in Boulder. Franny and Boulder, and then it jumps back in time to
Maine,
to Maine, and then it bounces a little bit forward to where they meet someone, then it bounces a little bit forward, and then the next story would be Stu. So it bounces when he's in the institution, and then it bounces back to the
then that's different from when I think that's different from the novel then, because I remember it being more chronological versus time jumpy. Like it was people jumpy, it wasn't time jumpy, if I remember correctly.
The book
this
was really hard to follow too, though. It was a long book.
Well, the book is. I mean, the book does suffer from Stephen King-itis a little bit, where it's so fantastic, and then you get to the ending and like, what the fuck? So
I know. I remember reading it, going, "Are you serious?" Like, really? And then it's like, "Oh wait, he's done this to me before many a times." Like, you get to the end, and you're like, "That's it." Are you fucking kidding me?
I know there's no satisfaction, as you all know. I hate it when I can't.
But I think he wants you to not be satisfied.
I think so.
A great example is the Dark Tower series, and it gives you an out. It gives you an out to say, if you stop here, you'll be happy.
Yeah.
But it's that Pandora's box. You can't help but open the next chapter and read it, and you go, "Well, fuck!" like ah.
Well, he does that. I mean, Stephen King does that a lot, and it always reminds me of those Bloomfield. What is that? Bloomfield horror films.
Bloomfield. No, wait. Yeah.
No, you're talking about Cloverhouse. Oh, I thought you meant Cloverfield.
No, the Blumhouse horror films. It's like whether it's Conjuring or all those lot of films or Annabelle or whatever, and they're like really good. And then you get the last 10 minutes, and like, really.
I know. I belong in all these horror groups. They're always saying, "Don't do the Blumhouse." Don't.
You know what I think it is too? Is I think with some stories, it's a rush at the end, right? Like you spend so much time painting this beautiful canvas, and you're at that last corner of the canvas, and you're like, "Oh, screw it," You're just like plopping, And versus like, did you give what I would say as a writer? Do you give it a consideration of the beginning and the end? You know what the end's going to look like, what the beginning is going to look like, and just fill it in between, right? Or do you just write it as it comes out of you, and you say, well, these are the characters I know, this is a story I'm trying to tell, I don't know what their ending is yet, I'll just wait to get there. If that's the case, that's what happens, right? You're like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen with Carrie. She can either go ballistic and kill everyone, or I don't know, maybe she'll just be fine,
I think it's because there's the exposition, isn't it? So when they try to explain it, and then they're trying to sometimes I don't think you need to explain things. Give the audience a little bit of credit here, sort of thing.
Yeah. Show, don't tell.
And what else have I been watching? Fran Lebowitz on
I got to start watching
Netflix, which is directed. It's a 8-part series, which each episode's about 30 minutes.
She's fantastically obnoxious.
All about life in New York City. Fantastic.
You'd like it, John.
She gives a really interesting look on it, and I have to sit there.
What is it again? What is it called?
It's I can't remember the name of the series, but it's about Fran Lebowitz. It's directed by Martin Scorsese. It's really funny, very sweet. She goes around New York and talks about, what New York used to be and what New York is now, and she's like a kindred spirit to me. So she's all quite negative.
She's so obnoxious, but she's so good at it. She's so good at it.
She just hates people. So that's
basically she hates everybody.
A true New Yorker.
Yeah.
Oh, pretend it's a city.
Yeah, that's it. Pretend City, and she used to write for Interview magazine, and she's written books and stuff like this. But she's a really interesting character. And
I used to love Interview magazine when I was like in my 20s. I remember getting that and just being fascinated by it.
And I love the size of it as well because it's a really good size.
Big 11 by 17, I think.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that.
Well, and it's funny because the Carrie Diaries, which is a cute little show that came before, or that was her growing up.
Right.
She gets a job at Interview. Like that's her first writing job, is working at Interview magazine. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool.
I had a subscription to that. It's kind of weird though. It's kind of something you read in your 20s, and then you get to a certain age and you just stop getting it. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess
like the National Enquirer, and you think somebody actually did kill that human-sized grasshopper. That guy standing there with a gun and the grasshopper.
Oh, I know.
Or Baby with Two Heads finds a cure for cancer.
I was impregnated by aliens.
Now you're getting into Inquiry.
But then, I mean, overall, I've been watching bits and bobs. The Circle on Netflix was probably the best reality programming you ever want to know. If you want to know about social media, watch this game show. It's fantastic. It'll teach you about what people are like, and it's really interesting. So
kind
I really
of
like
nut jobs, basically.
Not nut jobs, but it tells you how.
Well, they have they can only communicate through social media.
Yeah, but that's how most people communicate nowadays.
Yeah, that's true. Sure. But we're all nut jobs.
So you don't really know who is on the other end of the screen, and
you
don't, and really how don't. Everyone, and it's quite interesting because it does show you, like, as far as that, it's a bit like that Netflix one about the man who murdered his wife and children, and basically as far as her social media is, they're the most perfect family, but then when you scratch the surface, and I always find that people who try to paint themselves on social media is happier than a game show hostess. Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder what's actually going behind, or they're spending a lot of time filtering their pictures or so on and so forth. But it's an interesting exercise, and it's based on the channel.
Countries too.
Yeah, it's based on the Channel 4 English programming. It started here first. So, but yeah,
sort of like what is it, Love Island? My God, my daughter loves Love Island. It's just like she always like, help. No more Love Island.
I'm repelled by any reality television because I know the mechanics enough now because it's been on for so long that it's all, it's set up to get you hooked in, right? And like it's set up to see like these fights happen, or you're my friend, now you're not my friend, and it's like all that.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, the only problem I have with Love Island is people who are looking for a career in media. And that's what my problem is. That's what they're looking for. Or in this country, because it's a show in this country. And then what happens is, and then they start taking and then they'll prop up in Love Island, then they'll do Celebrity Big Brother like they're celebrities or something.
Well, the Love Island in the UK is far seedier than the Love Island in the United States. So, I mean, if I'm going to watch Love Island, I'm going to watch the UK Love Island before I watch the American one.
Well, I always found agreed, like the UK versions, because you're getting a little bit more authentic, whereas everything in the US is censored, so you're getting like what they want you to see as a network, to see what you're seeing. You're not going to get everything.
Wow,
see, the only problem I have with these reality game shows, whether it's Love Island or Big Brother or so on and so forth, is that once they do the show, I don't want to see them afterwards. I don't want them to be a celebrity.
They keep coming back doing their Instagram and everything else and their Twitter.
I can't. And that's the thing, is their egos are so inflated. It's insane.
Well, then they end up doing the MTV one where they're on an island and there's something else. You know what I mean? And then they start popping up in these other reality game show thingies, and they're like, oh God! So
the young people like it.
I don't remember if you remember the show Average Joe. That was another one long time ago, and that show I was like, I can't believe anyone watches this. I can't believe I'm watching this. But it was mama boys. It was the mother had to help their son pick who their spouse would be.
That would rub my last nerve raw.
And it started with a group of men picking women, and then it whittles down to one man and one woman, basically. But the guy ends up picking the girl that the mother doesn't even like, and she's like, was in Playboy, was like, it's like, of course he's gonna pick her. I mean, hello, like he's not gonna like her. He's gonna pick Molly Sue, who is like, the perfect picture, daughter-in-law.
And let's face it, we all go after people our parents don't like. That's what we are attracted to.
Yeah,
it's like if they want to be our parents' best friend, we're like, nah. It's like, because the reason why you don't want to pick someone that your parents are really friendly with is because the thing is, not only is let's say you have an argument with the other half, so they're bitching at you, then they're telling you, then they have a closer relationship than with your parents than you do, so then they're bitching about you, and then your parents are bitching about your relationship to you. So it's just like, it's an endless circle. And outside of that, out of watching bits and bobs, I've been watching a lot of great Spanish movies on Netflix at the moment. I saw one that basically I was laughing and then I was crying my eyes out. It was called Live Twice, Love Once. Fantastic. Watch it. It is about a guy with Alzheimer's, and he's starting to lose his memories. And
already sounds sad. It's sort of like
but it's so funny at the same time. It's done with humor as well, and it's about, and basically he's got this memory of this girl that he saw on the pier when he was a young boy, and he had a quick. So he wants to find her to find out if she's ever thought of him, and then his family go along reluctantly. His daughter, son-in-law, and the granddaughter, and they go along, and it's really funny, and then it's really touching, and it's sad, but then it's really it's uplifting, and it's so fantastic. It's one to watch. So. And then besides that, I've been playing a lot of Dragon Quest and getting to the end of that finally. So that's taken me quite a 90 hours of gameplay so far. So yeah. But besides that, yeah, that's pretty much it. Back to work, had my COVID injection. So getting my second one in March. So yes.
Nice.
So is a month apart or is it a little over?
12 weeks.
12
weeks. Yeah. So yeah, that's quite good.
Good deal.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut to Story Geek, who's going to tell you what you can watch and what you can download or stream during the COVID crisis. So take it away, Story Geek.
What should you watch the week of January 11th? I'm Jay Shear, co-writer of the supernatural steampunk western Death of a Bounty Hunter, here behind me on the wall, which, by the way, just made the Screencraft Cinematic Book Competitions quarterfinals. So we're really excited about that, and I hope you have had a chance to go check it out. You can pick up your copy at deathofabountyhunter.com. Now, this year, there's been a lot of new streaming content already out that is available to you, and I just wanted to catch you up on what you can watch now on the various streaming channels as of January. So I'll also give you, if I've seen it, I'll give you a recommendation about whether or not you should actually watch it. Let's go ahead and jump into Netflix. Netflix has added Spring Breakers, which I have not seen. I did hear that it did get good reviews. It has a 63 on Metacritic. Not really my kind of movie. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The History of Swear Words, hosted by Nick Cage, which I have watched a couple of, and it's entertaining. It's edited well. Bonnie and Clyde, Catch Me If You Can, which is a phenomenal movie that you should definitely watch if you have not seen. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Cobra Kai Season 3. I've heard really good things about Cobra Kai, but have actually not seen it myself. Cool Hand Luke, The Departed, which I think is a fantastic movie. Enter the Dragon, Goodfellas, Into the Wild, Julie and Julia, Mud, The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad, hilarious. You should definitely go watch The Naked Gun. Superbad, also funny, but not for the kids. And finally, What's Eating Gilbert Grape. So go check out all of those movies over on Netflix. My biggest recommendation for Netflix is either going to be Catch Me If You Can, which I think is phenomenal, or it'll be The Departed, which is also really, really good. Let's go jump over to Amazon Prime. Here are some of the movies and TV shows added to Amazon Prime. Climate of the Hunter, Herself, Gretel and Hansel, Happy Face, White Lie, 1900, Arachnophobia, that's the first movie I've actually seen, Bloody Sunday, Broken Arrow, The Brothers McMullen, Cloverfield, The Cooler, Donnie Brasco, Dr. Strangelove, Escape from Alcatraz, Eve's Bayou, Face Off, which, by the way, Face Off has an 82 from Metacritic. I find that kind of shocking, but also that was a very iconic movie, so maybe go back and watch Face Off. In and Out, The Last of the Mohicans, obviously a great film, The Longest Yard, Major League, Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World. I don't think a lot of people saw that movie, but that movie was pretty good. Peggy Sue Got Married, Places in the Heart, Salt, Soul Food, Star Trek Beyond, Starman, The Town, The Truman Show, and Wonder Boys. Out of all of those, I might go back and watch Face Off, honestly. I can't believe that it has that high of a score on Metacritic. It is a super strange film, and why we would ever believe that Nick Cage and John Travolta could just swap faces and we just go with it, I don't know. But hey, why not rewatch it? Time to check out what's over on Disney+. They added a show called Marvel Studios Legends. All it is clips from different TV and movie properties of your favorite heroes, kind of reintroducing them. So they have a couple out right now for Vision and Wanda, because WandaVision is coming out on January 15th. Star Wars Forces of Destiny, Seasons 1 and 2 has now come out as well on Disney+. Toy Story That Time Forgot. I have not watched this yet. It's a TV special, and sounds good. I mean, all Toy Story stuff is pretty darn good. They do a really good job with that stuff. It has an 81 on Metacritic, so it might be worth checking out. Earth to Ned added season 1, part 2. That show's just a little too weird for me. Horton Hears a Who also came out, and The Wolverine, which has a 61 on Metacritic. That's the Wolverine from 2013, where he goes to Japan. And finally, coming to Hulu, Gretel and Hansel, 1900, Arachnophobia, Austin Powers in Goldmember, pretty funny movie. Blade Runner, The Final Cut. There's too many different cuts of Blade Runner out there right now, but it does have an 84, and Blade Runner is a great film. If you haven't revisited it in a while, I would go check it out. Blood Diamond, Bloody Sunday, Boogie Nights, Breakdown, Broken Arrow, The Brothers McMullen, Changing Lanes, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Cloverfield, The Cooler, Crazy Stupid Love, Dead Poets Society, The Dead Zone, Donnie Brasco, Escape from Alcatraz, Eve's Bayou. Face Off is also available here on Hulu. The Foot Fist Way, The Gift, Hell or High Water, which I think is fantastic. If you haven't seen Hell or High Water and you kind of like modern day westerns, that would be right up your alley. Hot Shots, In and Out, Internal Affairs, The Last of the Mohicans, the director's cut, The Longest Yard, Love and Basketball, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, bit of a throwback there. Places in the Heart, The Princess Bride. If you went for a movie with the kids, Princess Bride, you cannot go wrong. Salt, Save Yourselves, Selena, Shrek, Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, Star Trek First Contact, Star Trek Beyond, Starman, Super Dark Times, The Truman Show, Wonder Boys, and Young Adults. So there you go. And don't forget, our novel, Death of a Bounty Hunter, is out now as a novel or a full cast audiobook. It is a supernatural steampunk thriller. If you like the Dark Tower series from Stephen King, you're bound to like what we're doing here. Go check it out at deathofabountyhunter.com. In the meantime, I hope you have fun watching movies and TV shows wherever you can find them.
Hello, welcome back to Literary License Podcast, and now we're discussing 28 Days Later, which is a 2002 British post-apocalyptic horror drama film directed by Danny Boyle and written by Alex Garland, and starring Cillian Murphy, Naomi Harris, Christopher Eccleston, Megan Burns, and Brendon Gleeson. The plot depicts the breakdown of society following the accidental release of a highly contagious virus and focuses upon the struggle of 4 survivors to cope with the destruction of life they once knew while evading those affected by the virus. The film received critical acclaim. Many praised Boyle's direction, the performance, screenplay, atmosphere, and soundtrack. Despite Boyle not considering it a zombie film, 28 Days Later is credited with reinvigorating a zombie genre of horror film with its fast-running zombies and character-driven drama. It's also a financial success, grossing more than $82.7 million worldwide on its modest budget of $8 million, and became one of the most profitable horror films of 2002. It was followed in 2007, a sequel to 28 Weeks Later, a graphic novel titled 28 Days Later, The Aftermath, which expands on the timeline of the outbreak, and 2009 comic book series titled 28 Days Later. In 2017, a poll of 150 actors, directors, writers, producers, and critics for Time Out magazine ranked it the 97th best British film ever. So before we discuss 28 Days Later, let's listen to the trailer.
So who are you?
Wake up today in hospital. Wake up and I'm hallucinating.
I've got some bad news.
They're infected.
Infected!
What?
Infected with what?
Oh, I shouldn't have done that.
It's the blood. There's something in the blood.
Lesson 1. You never go anywhere alone unless you've got no choice.
Hello?
Lesson 2. You only travel during daylight unless you've got no choice.
See, this is a really shit idea. You know why? This is obviously a shit idea.
We have to leave now.
More will be coming. They always do.
They're dead. And you're gonna be next.
Hello, welcome back to Literally License Podcast, and we're discussing 28 Days Later. So, John, what are your thoughts of 28 Days Later?
I love it. I don't know if I would call it a zombie movie just because of the fact that it is, like, to me, more of like a contagion movie because of the way the virus works. I don't know if they ever really establish it, like, you get your throat ripped out, are you dead? Or you get your throat ripped out and you're dead. And so
I think
it's
it
like,
depends on how much they eat you.
I mean, because it's like weird. Like, but I love Walking Dead totally ripped off the beginning of this film.
Oh, definitely. Total rip-off.
I don't know if that's ever been addressed.
I noticed that. I was sitting there thinking that when I go, wow, this is like The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I just remember this film too, when I first saw it when it came out, was that concept of just waking up in a world where like no one's around and you know something really horrible has happened. That in itself is just terrifying.
Right. And
knowing like, you know, this person's just like trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Imagine that happening to you is like terrifying. I love the way it's stylistically shot too. That's a rare thing. And I actually wished more directors and producers would do and use that style and the tightness of the shots and the face. And it just feels like it's done with a camcorder, which a lot of it was, I think.
Just very digital.
Yeah. And it just gave such an intimate sort of relationship between the actors and the camera. And so really, really loved this film. And I'm hoping they do, because I know we'll talk about the next film, but I'm hoping they continue this story because it to me has a lot of room to breathe, if you will. Like it focuses on specifically London, but then, you know, it's like, to me, it's like, what about the rest of the world? And you don't get a glimpse into that because everything is so tight and focused on these characters trying to survive. I mean, that's, you know, I guess, again, I said this film, I love contagion films too because of the fact that where it starts and the unfortunate thing is these poor people who are trying to do something good, which is like free these animals from being tested.
Oh,
it's like in all good intentions, really shitty things can happen. And it's like, but don't, and it's too late. And you're like, oh God, you know.
See, that's the moral of the story. Liberals are going to fuck up the world if you let them.
I think the moral of the story is like just leave shit alone and like, you know.
Mind your own effing business.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get activists involved in things. Sometimes they kind of go a bit too far. But
boy, what happened to Wuhan for all we know?
Yeah, precisely. Let a bat out. Ooh, no.
Let the bats out.
But I mean, what's quite interesting in this actually is, this actually fits in really well with, when man screws with nature, nature has a way of screwing back, and that's what's quite interesting. But I mean, it is quite bizarre watching these virus movies, and we were discussing The Stand earlier. But then, of course, 28 days later, when you look at these viruses and the way that they spread, and aren't we living in like this kind of world at the moment, sort of thing?
It does pretty much. It really resonates in this time in our lives, don't you think, these movies? Did we plan this before this happened? I can't remember.
Well, I have to say, when we started season 3 back in September, I think our first episodes for that month were disease themed. We had Mask of the Red Death, and then we did Longtime Companion, and then we did that other one about the disease as well. Something in the dark sort of thing. So I don't know. I mean, it looks like, I don't know, maybe so I'm kind of worried about what we're going to do for season 5, whether we need to be very, very careful.
Alien invasion. Everyone look to the sky.
just in case that there's something here. But yeah, I mean, what I quite like about this film, I mean, this actually gets worse in the second film.
Yes.
But it's funny that when you watch a film that you live in and you see people travel in that city that you live in, and how they get to different places. And I mean, to be honest, Cillian Murphy's character, this kind of drives me nuts. And if I didn't live in London, I'd probably be fine. But, you know, he goes across the river because St. Thomas is on the same side of the river as Big Ben. So he crosses the river and then crosses back to Big Ben. And the way that he goes around to get to Deptford, to where his home is, I mean, it would take him 2 or 3 days just to walk there. just the route that he was taking. You're like, God, it's like.
And especially he just woke up from a coma, so I'm assuming he's a little bit fatigued. And actually, there's a point where he's trying to get the stairwell, and he can't even get up the stairwell, right? So
yeah, and
or maybe it's because he did all the walking.
so it's kind of like it gets worse. The next one when we discuss that, the location thing gets really bad. Right. And we're like, because Isaac and I are going, why the hell are they now? How the hell did they get there? Sort of thing. But what is quite interesting about this, if you see anything about the making of the movie, is that they would have to shoot at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they would stop all traffic and everyone, and then they would film for 10 minutes, and then start it back up for 10 minutes, and then stop everything for 10 minutes.
That's crazy.
And I think they did Trafalgar for they got 45 minutes, I think, before on a Sunday in London. So they could get it done.
And it's really hard to be able to close off anything here without any people.
I was wondering how they did that because it's so busy there.
Yeah, and so it's quite interesting. So when you see that, it's kind of like it's a marvel that he was able to do that. And to be honest, out of the 8 million, I would say 4 million of that was spent, clearing all that.
Well, getting coding and getting permission to do something. Yeah.
But the hospital that he was in is a real hospital. That none of this is done on set. It's all done on real location. So that's St. Thomas's Hospital.
They trashed the hospital then. I hope they cleaned it up before they left.
Not like in the Apocalypse where they had to turn the ceiling tiles over.
I love that. That was hysterical. Oh, my God. By the way, can you imagine having to clean up for this film? All that blood? Oh, God.
Yeah. But what I do find weird about this film is that it's considered a zombie film, but it is not a zombie film. It's what you said it is. It's a disease film. Because the thing is, when you kill the infected, you kill them like you do humans.
Right.
Sort of thing. So you don't need to hit them in the head. They don't keep coming. They don't keep moving. Once they're down, they're down, sort of thing. So which is kind of weird that this would be considered a zombie, because this also gave birth to the fast moving zombie.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I still have issues. I have more. This gives it more clout because it's an epidemial thing here that it sort of enhances your rage. I've always had problems with fast zombies or big zombies or strong zombies or any of that. Like, to me, it's like a zombie is like, that's why I guess I have a bigger problem with like The Walking Dead and stuff, because I'm like, the fact that people still die on this show, I don't understand, because they're slow as fuck. Like, and it makes sense that they should be slow as fuck, like you should be able to like take them down. You're a little bit more agile than them. But the fact that these people are enraged, it's like hyper steroid, that's one thing I do love about this film, is that and the fact that it happens so quickly. The moment they get a drop of blood, all of a sudden it's like within 10 to 15 seconds.
Well, it's like it gets in his eye, that corpse, bleeds in his eye, just like boom.
I remember seeing that scene too and going, oh, fuck. I was like, what's going to happen?
Because you really liked him,
Well, I just thought he was going to get mauled, because they do give a little nod to where it looks like something's passing behind in the car.
Yeah.
And it's just that scene, you're like, what's going to happen? Then when that happens, you're like, oh, man. Oh, come on. But then you're like, oh, wait, we're going to get to see someone change. Cool. You go from
but they go to that. You got that one verdant green, and the monastery ruin things where they have like that quiet before the storm, because they found them in that, was it a low income apartment high rise? Yeah. And I think that their Christmas lights out, and that's what attracted them to it. And they had all the infected down in the bottom, and they had to work their way up. And
it's weird though, because he sets a car alarm off, and at one point because I caught it this time around because I watched it again yesterday, and I was like, where the hell are the zombies? Like, they didn't hear any of that. Like, yet they see freaking blinking lights on a balcony, and they're like, ah! Like, what the hell? Do they hate Christmas? Is that what the problem is? Because look, there's a lot of people who don't feel good about it.
Yeah, but they're also saying that they had difficulty during daytime, that they hibernated in the day and they're out at night.
They don't they didn't
So they could walk around freely during the day. It's just at night they had to.
Interesting.
Because I guess maybe it's something to do with their eyes, maybe the sunlight or something. Because their eyes are all red, aren't they? So I'm assuming that something to do with their eyes, or so they go out in packs, because that's the reason why I like going into the tunnel. Oh shit, we're going into the tunnel, because when they're in the day, and then of course once they go in the tunnel, that's when they all wake up and they get.
Well, it's dark in the tunnel. Was that during the daytime when they drove the cab in the tunnel?
Yeah, it was daytime, and
all the cars.
Yeah, you're saying, "Oh, this is not a good idea," because they come out in the dark.
Oh, that's right. Because then he says, well, we got to go. Like, so he makes that choice. Yeah.
I mean, what I quite like about this film, it's very typically English. This film, it's very English. and it's quite interesting to see how it translates, across the pond and stuff like that, sort of thing. Which is, I think it does quite well, considering that. I mean, it's very English as far as we're living on Plague Island. This is what the rest of the world's calling England at the moment. We're Plague Island. Christmas time on Plague Island. Chapter 2. So it's quite interesting. So, basically the main expressway that they go up to from London to to go on their way to Manchester is the one expressway that takes you there. There's only one expressway that takes you there, sort of thing. Because England is not a mass land. I mean, just to give you an idea, the size of the UK would fit inside New York State very easily.
Oh, interesting. I never knew it was that small.
Yeah. So
it took us 2 hours to get to Wales, I think, from London.
Yeah. And you get to Scotland in 4 to 5 hours. So, and it takes you actually longer to go from New York City up to the top northern part of New York State. So,
yeah.
So it's interesting to look at the landmass and how, sort of thing, and see it all quite contained. And that's what I quite like about this movie. I like how, as you were saying before, how contained it is.
Well, it is an island. The UK is an island, or at least Great Britain is. So,
and more of an island now than due to Brexit.
You are on your own now.
We are on our own.
It's like Gilligan's Island.
God save the Queen. But yeah, and I also quite like the idea. It's like, so you kind of see where it's all going, and then of course we do get what we always get in every zombie film, or I mean, even though it's not a zombie film, but we do get where man is actually worse than
exactly.
Yes, than the actual mindless.
Like the army guys that they run into that they think they're going to be saved by, and you got this one guy that's got a king syndrome, and he wants to use the young girl, and the other woman is a
he does
tube
but
humanity.
He does have, but he in a weird kind, but there is a weird sense of he's kind of right. If they are the last living humans on the face,
and I think of all
start breeding.
I think of all of them, he wasn't as. I think he was more authoritarian than he was like the other guy who I couldn't wait for him to get ripped apart, who was just an asshole and I mean, he just wanted to rape a girl. Like, he didn't give a shit. Like, he was like more. There are only chances of surviving. I'm sorry we have to do this, but we got to do this, right? And it's like we lured them here, and I promised them this, so that way they can still continue to defend. And it's it would be what a leader should do. Now, is it the right thing you should do? No, but like at the same time, he's trying to be a leader versus a tyrant. Like, well,
then he's got his pet sergeant out back who's chained up because he wants to see how long it takes for them to starve to death, I guess, was the reason he had him chained up. And you knew that wasn't going to end well right there.
Yeah, which, I mean, if you think about it, though, it is smart to have something contained to study it, but there were no scientists there. So it's kind of like, well, why are you studying? Like, who, there's
they weren't studying his behavior. They were just studying to find out how long it'll take him to starve to death. So how long will it take before all these people starve to death?
That makes sense. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
But you knew it wasn't going to end well for that because he kept taunting him, and I guess they didn't really have any any cognition anymore, or they're just savage. They just mindlessly want to destroy.
But it's kind of a bit like those people who like have a pet lion and they sit there and they tease the pet lion until the pet lion finally like bites their head off, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is really prevalent here in Texas.
Or the whales, when they were doing it with SeaWorld, and the whale ended up drowning that person. It's like, well, you have them in captivity and you're constantly treating them like pets. They're going to eventually be like, screw you.
You're going down
now picture what would happen if you didn't feed them. And so it's like it's waiting for them to starve to death.
I thought it was interesting too when they takes Jim out to go shoot him with the other, I guess it'd be lieutenant, takes him out. You see how many people that they've done this to, because there's like piles, a huge pile of bodies. So you're like, fuck, how long have they been? So you wonder how many people
you had Sergeant Farrell, Corporal Mitchell, Private Jones, Clifton Bell, Bedford, Davis, and Mailer. They were all privates.
Yeah. And then you saw also too, which I don't know if you noticed that as well, like the naked women running, were they people that were subjected to this and at somehow point got away, but then got infected, and that, then now they're coming back for revenge, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never been a zombie. I don't know. Do you lose that one thing, like in The Walking Dead that makes you?
Well, they're not zombies though. They're infected. So,
they're infected
because they haven't died. So the question basically is how much of their memories are still inside their infected enraged bodies.
Which they kind of like not to go skipping into the second film, but they kind of give you a nod into the glimpse of the mind of someone who's enraged. That's they call it rage.
So I guess they're technically not zombies; they're infected. Yeah,
infected. I think it could be just they're hyperly enraged and no sense of like preservation. It's more about just destroying, not like because they're not feeding. So that's the difference between zombies and the rage is they're attacking. All they're doing is attacking and killing or turning. And then once they've done that, they go to the next and attack and kill and turn. They're not like feasting.
And I guess you would probably get, it is basically, I guess the principles and the workings of this is based on mob rules.
Yeah.
Basically is, and if you notice, they're not attacking on their own. They're all part of a mob.
Yeah.
And the movie at the very beginning, when you see what the chimpanzees watching, and you're watching everything's done with all this mob ruling, isn't it? And what people who are
what was the point to that though? They had these poor chimpanzees hooked up to watching all this violence. Was that the virus? Was it a biological weapon?
It's to show how the mind deals with watching.
But was it an adrenaline kind of thing that they extracted?
Well, they had nodes on the chimpanzee.
The brain.
Yeah. So I think what they were doing was behind, which you couldn't see, was they're probably monitoring the brain pathways to see how it responds. So if you're feeding the chimpanzee all these negative images, and there's no difference in response versus how they already. So if you're already enraged and you have this rage, right? Your brain is fired, right? When you watch something soft like a cuddly teddy bear or whatever, your brain is still enraged. It's just that's your state. So I think maybe that's what they were trying to monitor. Yeah, I think that's all they were doing was monitor. And if you look, the chimpanzee wasn't in pain. It was just watching it.
Well, they were just chilling.
Seemed like that's what I mean. So that's what I think it was trying to prove is that normally when someone watches something like that, they're affected emotionally by that and would not want to watch that. It just laid there watching it,
And what they did is what you do in scientific research. And unfortunately, we do use animals because people is considered too inhumane. Though I think there are some people we probably could start using. But the thing is, cancer research. You give the animals cancer to figure out how it reacts to certain things. The thing is that, you don't go hunting around looking for an animal that has cancer. I'm sorry, but and that's what you do. And I think, and then what they did in this case basically is they found the chemical component, what causes rage, probably within the brain sort of thing. And then probably injected a couple of specimens, in this case, chimpanzees, and kept them enraged. And basically, and then what you do is then you look for an antibody or a way to cure that rage within them. sort of thing, and that's what they were doing. So that's what you do when you do research. You do it on multiple layers, sort of thing, and it's it's like 1 through 10. You have one, number 2, all the way up to 10, and different severities, and then you try to come up with a common denominator amongst those to find a cure.
A very interesting film, if someone ever wanted to do, was to do a similar film that's like this and have it in where the scientist escapes with a vial of whatever that blood is. Right. And then it's the start of this film. Like they're now testing it in the UK to see what it was. So we don't know. We just know that the scientist knows that this is what happened to him, but we don't know how he learned that, whether that was a human or was already infected. And so they were like, oh God, and they killed that human, and now we're going to test it out to see. So we don't really know. He just knows that it is something that basically what it does. We just don't get to see that, which I think that's a very interesting story. And a good way to trick people to think it's a whole new movie, and then you watch it and you're like, oh my God, that's so cool. It ties into the first one,
Well, it's a bit like, if you want to take, if you want to look at COVID, for instance, if you want to look at it in a more realistic way. COVID could have started in a lab, which basically could have been simple fact like we want to cure so flu never happens again. Yeah. And then then it got mutated into what we have, or we want to make sure SARS never happens again. And if it was born, I'm not saying it was born in a lab, but if it was born in a lab, and then what happens is then we got what we have now.
Yeah. Right. And by the way, no one would want to. No one would want to own that, right? Who in the hell would want to own? Be like, oh, sorry, guys. I was trying to do something good, but I screwed up. I created a virus and almost killed everyone. Hey.
Yeah, but so the thing basically is, though, it doesn't start off from like, I'm going to rule the world, I'm going to create a virus, and this is what's going to happen. It starts off with, a form of good, and it's like, okay, we're going to do this, and then hopefully we have to develop this. So if we develop this, then we can find a cure for this, and that will cure this, and then we can make sure that the world kinds without this. Yeah. Sort of thing.
Which is interesting because they're looking at even now with using HIV to treat cancer because because HIV it basically will eat the tumor. So it is in itself, like if you create the right environment within the body, which is usually you have to kill a person to cure a person, which means the people that they've known that this kind of work for is people who went through bone marrow transplants and chemo, and then to eradicate it, they use HIV as a way to attack the actual tumors because it eats the tumor. So It's interesting that you use a virus to treat a cancer, right? But like as Keith said, you try these radical therapies because in the one case of the person, it was a child, who was dying. The parents are like, had to give consent. Can you imagine having to give your, consent to this to happen? Yeah. But it's like you have no other choice. Stage 4, your kid's going to die anyway. So what do you,
exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's, that's what makes this film quite interesting, actually, because it's not, it's coming from a place of good. It's not coming from a place of evil, the beginning of it. And of course, bad happens because of it. Because they're like, look, let's solve rage so that way people are no longer rage. So that way we can live in a world that everyone's singing Kumbaya for the rest of our life.
Well, it had a little known cast too. That helped because it made it more believable,
Yeah, they all went on to bigger, but Cillian Murphy's now sort of thing, but. Yeah, Naomi Harris was a little girl, actress that kind of graduated into this role, and Brendon Gleeson's now appeared in quite a lot now, sort of thing. So, yeah, I think the only person that was quite famous was probably Christopher Eccleston, who was in he'd done a couple of Danny Boyle films before,
right?
And brought I think the same one that Ewan McGregor to the forefront. Before Train Spotting, I can't remember the name of it now, but anyway, it'll come to me. But Christopher Eccleston went on to world acclaim because he was Doctor Who for a little while.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think overall, I think 28 Days Later is a good little film, sort of thing.
I liked it.
Yeah, it's definitely intense. Like you don't feel like. Some of these types of films have a little bit of a lag, and I didn't never feel that lag.
It doesn't really have a lag. Even when they take the break at the monastery, because remember they had to take, the Valium because they wanted to fall asleep. Little girls, please. And she goes, you can have half a Valium because, gosh, what was her name now? It's going to drive me nuts. The character.
Which one? Selena?
Selena, yeah, she stole all the pharmaceuticals. That's definitely something I would have done, was stole all the pharmaceuticals.
I think that's what most people would do, because you
Like,
think about it like, because what if you do get sick in this world? There's no good luck finding a doctor. So if you can at least, I think that's the first place most people go raid.
Well, at least get penicillins and antibiotics.
One of my favorites,
the good stuff like the Demerol.
Speaking of my favorite scene too is when they go into the supermarket and everything is just pristine, and it was weird, and I'm like, okay, but I'm gonna go with this because I think it's kind of fun.
Those shopping shows, they kind of made it look like they just were just cruising through there and just getting whatever.
Supermarket sweep.
That's what it looked like, the supermarket sweep. But they had that one little lull, but they were afraid to sleep though. Because who's going to be really sleeping well in that kind of atmosphere? Because you don't know when somebody's going to come on upon you. I mean, just the brain fuck you're getting just from the situation as it is.
Well, even there's a fire, right? So they're sitting by a fire. And so in that situation, I don't know how the raged people know where people are. I'm assuming it's light. I'm assuming it's sound. And maybe even smell. So I would think you would just want to go somewhere where you can't even you kind of blend in, right? And so I agree. Like, imagine you're trying to sleep and you're trusting a gentleman who's maybe in his late 50s, 60s, who is a little bit overweight. You're really trusting this man to be like, jump into action and start killing, no, I can't sleep. Sorry.
Yeah.
No.
If you look at it, I mean, it must be light, because when he went to his home where his parents committed suicide, then he had the candle in it, and that attracted him. That broke him through the.
Yeah.
That's why they came
that's
to
true.
the back door. Yeah.
That scene scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, that was a jumper.
I knew something was going to happen. I just didn't know from where. And then when oh my gosh, that's.
Yeah, that was a good jump scare. I wasn't expecting it.
But it's quite interesting also. It does tell you that you are the cause of the actions that go on around you as well. I mean, because we got that other guy killed, didn't it? They told him, it's like, whatever you do, keep and he didn't listen, and of course it got the other guy killed. So
why is it that people always have such a fucking hard time listening when they people who know what they're doing, who survived, for as long as they have? It takes the a-hole who just joins the group to be like, what? What did I do? And it's like, we just told you not to.
Yeah. Which we're going to have a lot of that in the next film.
I know. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So what are your final thoughts, Vicky, on 28 Days Later?
I really liked it. I thought I like I said, you got vested in the characters, but at the same token, you didn't want to get too vested because you didn't want to like them, because you knew that it was probably not going to end well for at least a few of them. And of course, then you got the military guys. Well, they just bunch of douchebags to begin with. I mean, they're just young and stupid. And I guess that the sergeant probably had it going on, but I mean, who gives him, the authority to decide it's going to be him to repopulate the planet and keep the only 2 women from Great Britain in his concubine space or whatever you want to call it. But I mean, it's an interesting film. It's got, I mean, whether you want to call them zombies or infected, I mean, they're scary. I mean, they're believable. It's like a fun movie. I like this kind of stuff, though. That's why I'm going to like the next one, because it's even gorier than this one. So that's me, though.
What are your final thoughts?
I definitely love the film. I when seeing it again yesterday, I was like, I forgot how great this film is.
It's great. It is.
I do love a contagion film. I think zombie films, after a while, I like them, but I don't love them. I feel like Contagion, it's because I feel like it could happen to me and it could happen to us.
Well, it is happening.
No, but I'm saying in the sense, like, it is actually happening if you think from a mental, like, rage that's happening online, or road rage, or just people just acting crazy as F. I'm sure when Danny was producing this film was like, had a flash of a memory of someone just acting like a fool and out of control, and he's like, I can make a movie about that. Instead of zombies, it's just crazy people acting crazy.
The world has gone crazy.
Yeah, and so I think it's like it's just more believable that way. It reminds me of I also love the movie Contagion because that's another one. It's like
I know I just watched that actually. What was it? Contagion? No, it was Quarantine.
Quarantine. That's it. Yeah.
But I watched Contagion too.
But I
like
Contagion's one with Amy Adams, right? Yeah. So that's one. But I love this film. I love just the style of it. I actually liked the ending they went with because I know they had alternate endings to this.
Yeah, I didn't see the alternate endings. I don't have the box set. I watched it on something else. But I would love to see the alternate ending.
Yeah, so one of them
There's 4 of them.
Yeah, so one of them is him dying, so he doesn't survive. Right. He saves him, and so it's a very remorseful one. And then the other one, the storyboard one was interesting because that one was one where it's like they kind of commit to this new life of just being whatever it takes to survive.
Right.
So they end up like getting guns and basically say, wherever we go, we're going to stick together and we'll do whatever it takes. So they kind of take on like sort of that idea of what the military would do. So that was very interesting.
But you were right in your opening statement. The Walking Dead totally ripped the beginning of this movie.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, there's a couple instances actually in that film where there was something else that happened, and I can't remember what it was, and I was like, there was a line in The Walking Dead. Oh, the military guy goes, so have you ever killed someone? Do you remember that in The Walking Dead, where Rick would say to every person, have you ever killed someone?
The 3 questions. How many people have you killed? How many zombies? And what was the last question? Oh, God, what was the last question?
I don't remember, but I just remember that one.
Can you put up with my annoying son?
Do you like my son, Carl?
Leave Carl alone. He's always beating up on Carl.
Not anymore. He's dead.
Thank God. I might watch it again.
Oh.
My final thoughts. I think this is a film that basically kind of started a whole genre of films that basically lasted from 2002 to the late 2010s.
Yeah.
So this actually started kicking all that off. But I also quite like it's a 2-hour movie and it doesn't feel like a 2-hour movie. I've seen zombie flicks that were like 80 minutes long.
They're painful.
That can be painful. And this is 2 hours long and it just moves at a really quick pace and you can't tear your eyes off it.
Well, they had great writing. They had a good script. For one.
And I mean, it's Danny Boyle and Alex Garland. And Alex Garland's written quite a few things since this. Alex Garland came to the forefront because he wrote the ultimate 90s novel called The Beach.
Oh, yeah.
Which was the book that everyone had to read in I think that was about 1995, 96, where everyone had, this is like the Flowers of the Attic of the 1990s. Right. Like everyone had to.
Is The Beach, is that the movie they made with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah, they made a movie version of the book. Yeah. The book is so much better. The movie version pales a little bit. And Danny Boyle, I mean, another thing, he's a very interesting director. I mean, from this, he did Shallow Grave is the one I was thinking of. We do McGregor, which is a fantastic film. And then after Shallow Grave, he went on to do, Sunshine, and he's done this. He also that one with James Franco where he has cut off his own arm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, where he gets the climber one, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Danny Boyle. But Danny Boyle's a really Slumdog Millionaire is another one of his. He's a really interesting director, and I always get quite excited when you see a Danny Boyle film come out. So, but yeah, I really like this film a lot, and I think that it probably holds dear as far as one of the good infection films.
I wasn't bored. I mean, I didn't feel the need to take a huge bathroom break and make a sandwich.
Yeah. It's also the characters are believable, and I think
they're very believable
in this type of a film. It's hard sometimes to have that mixture because you always have that one really freaking annoying character, and you just like, but it's sort of like, all of this makes sense. Even some of them don't get to linger that long. Like the guy that's actually with Selena. I forget what his name is, but as soon as he gets infected, she's like, wah, 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 like, and you're just like,
I know, she doesn't pull any punches, does she? It's just like,
no. She's like, if you get blood, I'm killing you within 10 seconds. It's like she showed you.
I think his name was Mark, wasn't it? Noah Huntley. Yeah. Mark.
Yeah.
I believe.
But the worst thing about him though is that he didn't get bit. He got stabbed. He accidentally got stabbed when he was like going through and he was stabbing them, and he accidentally stabbed himself. And
he got bit though. That guy that came through in the kitchen.
No, it wasn't a bit. It was a stab wound. He got stabbed wound, and the blood went into the stab wound.
She didn't.
Okay.
And what he said was, "How did you know?" And she goes, "Look, I looked into his eyes, and he knew
get it done right now.
I mean, and that's what's even worse. It's not like he was bit or by the infected. Is that he had an open wound that got infected because it had an open wound. Yeah. That's the worst. You know, okay. Think about it.
Why I thought he got bit. I guess I just missed that part.
From the co-writers of the Amazon top-selling serial story, Timeslingers, comes a new, full-cast audiobook, Death of a Bounty Hunter, a supernatural steampunk western. 14 different characters voiced by 11 professional voice performers. A Korean bounty hunter named Flint finds himself in the middle of an occult plot to steal a powerful relic from an innocent woman.
Get me the Iron Spur, and I will show you true power.
Caught between the desperate sheriff who's becoming unhinged at the worst possible time.
He mutters the word like a curse dipped in sarcasm. I draw my gun and shoot him between the eyes.
And the phantom woman haunting his nightmares.
The living always think the dead are worse off.
Flint will have to make a choice. Confront the sheriff's posse of misfits or run. But he's losing time. An ogre of a man with a Gatling gun for an arm. The brash and headstrong Pinkerton agent, Geraldine Abernathy, and a young, speedster idiot ludicrously named Fancy Dude. They'll all converge at the home of a widow who's lost everything but possesses the relic they all desire, the Iron Spur.
Damn that trinket to hell. I don't care what it is or what it does or why the Duskfinders want it. I care about my children.
Death of a Bounty Hunter, the weird western you've been waiting for. Available on www.deathofabountyhunter.com.
Well, that brings us to 28 Weeks Later, which is a 2007 horror film directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadilo, who co-wrote it with Rowan Jaffe, Enrique Lopez Lavigne, and Jesus Alamo. The sequel of the 2002 film of 28 Days Later, it stars Robert Carlyle, Rose Byrne, Jeremy Renner, Harold Perrineau, Catherine McCormick, Imogen Poots, and Idris Elba. It is set after the events of the first film, depicting the effects of the NATO military forces to salvage a safe zone in London, the consequences of two young siblings breaking protocol to find their infected mother, and the resulting reintroduction of the rage virus to the safe zone. 28 Weeks Later was released on the 11th of May 2007 by 20th Century Fox in the United Kingdom and by Fox Atomic in the United States. Like its predecessor, the film received positive reviews from critics and many praising the performances, atmosphere, and screenplay. It grossed $64 million against a $15 million budget. So, Vix, what's your thoughts of 28 Weeks? Oh, wait, let's cut to the trailer and be right back.
What happened, Dad? To Mum?
Your mum and I were hiding in a house. And we were, just trying to stay alive, I suppose. We were doing okay for a while. And then we were attacked. It was really fast, you know. I couldn't do anything. I managed to get away. Just running.
We're just happy you're still alive. stay together, whatever happens.
Whatever happens.
I just have to use the restroom. Hold on one sec.
Welcome back to the Literary License Podcast, and now we're discussing 28 Weeks Later. So, Vicky, what are your thoughts of 28 Weeks Later?
Well, I like 28 Days Later, and I definitely loved 28 Weeks Later. I thought this one, I don't know why, I thought this one was a little more edgy, and the father of the children in the movie scared the piss out of me. He was scary looking. He was just scary looking. But I mean,
it's Rumpelstiltskin Once Upon a Time.
I know, which I love him, by the way. In that, he's so good.
I know, but I mean, okay, you got this outbreak again, and what are they living on? Dog Island, I think they call it.
Yeah, it's
Island of the Dogs.
It's Canary Wharf. It's Docklands.
Yeah. And so they put all these people on here. And, okay, you got NATO coming. I think Ronald Reagan once said, "I'm from the government. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help you." And you know that it's just not going to work out already. Okay, it's just like, no, the government's going to help everybody get this shit straight, especially NATO. But I mean, I guess Great Britain at this time couldn't handle it, so I guess NATO had to come in and kick some ass, I guess, and get everything back in order. But it's talk about the human endurance and human spirit. I mean, this one is, and it's sad. And again, you get vested in the characters, but not so much like the first one, because you know the father immediately, like it starts out where they're at the farmhouse and it's idyllic, kind of, you know, like they're having like Spaghetti Tuesday, like The Walking Dead kind of sort of thing, and you know this kid comes in. And it's just like, well, these, you know, the infected or zombies, whatever you want to call them, follow this kid. And then all hell breaks loose. And then, you know, you have the father of the children. What was his name in this movie? What was his name? He was Don?
Don, I think, right?
Don, yeah. And Don is just a total shithead. His wife doesn't want to leave this little boy that they've rescued. And instead of being the man, he takes off. And he leaves his wife there to get, you know, decimated by the infected people who like to just bite you. But the thing is with this movie, and I like this, it seems like they kind of pick and choose who they want to eat and they want to kill, you know, or who they want to infect, kind of. At least with this, the father, Don, because he seems cognitive as an infected. He seems like he knows he's got a mission. He wants his children back. He becomes infected after he kisses his wife, who has some kind of immunity thing going on, because she does survive. They bring her back, and I guess when he kisses her, that's where he gets the infection, which is really instantaneous.
It's in her saliva. So.
Yeah, so it's instantaneous, and so he just totally like tears her a new ass, you know, after he turns. And he just seems like he's cognitive of the fact that he wants his children. Is that just my imagination, or do you guys think that he knew?
I mean, I think it's like a mutation, because clearly we don't know how she got out of the situation she got in.
Oh my God, I don't even know how she got out either.
I'm assuming that either something about her detracted from, you know, she got bit, but I don't know what would have, you know, what happened. Either they focused their attention on the child and they devoured the child or ripped the child apart. Who knows? But her surviving it, obviously something about her mutated it. So now, you didn't
expect her to live, because the children wanted pictures of their mother, because the little boy didn't want to forget what she looked like.
I still was like, I would say I love this film, but there were parts about it that I just questioned. The reasoning,
like how did the kids get away from a military installation?
Yeah, and especially the guy who has the gun. It took you how long for you to let them go get bikes, to them get on the bikes, to go across the bridge, and like, I don't know. Now this is where geographically, Keith, how long would you think it take for them to get seriously? Because
they got a moped though, or something.
They got a huge leeway to get to where they're going before the military came in and intervened. And I was like,
well, the thing is we're not quite sure where the family home is in this instance. So, so I mean, if it's in East London, then it's possible. Where we're going to come into difficulty is after where they're trying to get to Wembley Stadium, and that's where it gets freaking messy. It's like, what? I was like, where in the hell are these people going? It's like, you know, yeah. But at that point, we're not quite sure what township that they're going to.
Well, all she knows is that one they call it Dog Island. That's the
I just think
which is Canary. That's Canary Wharf.
Right.
Dog
but
Island,
that's the
Canary
only
Wharf.
real
That's Docklands.
bi-location you have, kind of.
Part of it was also, and I don't know if it's just, it was trying to paint the ugliness of like how people view or just kind of move on from things. And like, I didn't like that, the beginning of this is like, and here we are at Jurassic Park, like it literally is like so cavalier, and we have a pub. And I was like, really? What the fuck?
I know the father, who is the douchebag that let the mother die, is like the caretaker of some sort.
It's like, it's supposed to be 28 weeks.
28 weeks later.
But that's not even a long enough time to bury the dead. And people are just like, and they're literally walking over the candles. And I'm just like, yo, okay, everyone's a little too cavalier right now. I know none of you were probably in what happened and you're somewhere else and you're being brought here, but I would think people will be a little bit more apropos, right? They would just be a little bit like, oh, I'm a little disturbed by what's happening. And that's, I think I just had a little bit of the problem with everyone's just chilling out now in their new crib, like he's.
I bet that's true because they had this really nice apartment or whatever. Yeah.
And I was just like, so I would think maybe if this is 28 months later, that would make sense.
That would, you're right. It would make more sense.
Gave it to grieve and everything. It felt just a little, and I don't know if that was because they're trying to paint Americans that way. Like, we're just like, whatever, we don't give a shit. We're still going to party. We're going to have a great time. I don't know if that's what it was.
The kids come back from America, but I mean,
from
they
Spain.
Sent over there for a reason?
Yeah. No, they're Spain, yeah.
It was school. The parents were like, I'm so glad that we made that choice because we sent them there and they were safe. So they're kind of alluding to the fact that only London was affected.
Or at least Great Britain, for that matter, had it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is that, but see, that's where there's a slight problem here from the original, because Naomi Harris's character in the first movie sits there and says that it spread very, very quickly. And she goes, and last we heard, there were sightings in Paris, in Europe, and in America. Right. And then the radios and everything stopped. So we don't know what's going on in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So you're kind of going, okay. I mean, I had problems with this film a little bit. I freaking hate the kids. They are freaking annoying.
Oh, the kids are annoying as hell. Yeah.
And
they're just being kids. You guys just aren't dads.
Yeah, but but the thing is like, I'm sorry, but it's like, you're going through this huge virus thing that's in, it's 28 weeks later. 28 weeks is what? Not that long.
I don't think kids realize though how.
6 months later.
Look at here, for instance, we had the COVID outbreak. You had everybody in Fort Lauderdale, dumping grain alcohol over their heads, and
but this is not people suffering from a rage that's like mutated and like killing, that most of the population is dead from. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, I would think that the mother dying, the kids were just sort of there. You would think they have the knowledge that they know that their mother isn't there, that they're being met with their father, but they almost show up like they've came back from a road trip and they're like, "Hey, Dad!"
Yeah, but I mean,
and I was like, "What the fuck?"
Was it okay in Spain?
It was a little weird. Like, I feel like it should have been more somber.
No, they came back. They did say they're coming from Spain, so they were.
Yeah,
but the thing is, though, the infected was in Spain because they said that they were living in tents in Spain. So obviously they were cordoning off.
They could have been refugees, though.
They could have been refugees if they're living in tents. I'm not sure, but I mean, they do give a nod that they're living in tents and that the living arrangement is squalor. That's so much better now that they're come home because
they did get some nice digs when they got back to the UK. So
yeah. So I don't know if they were, I don't know if they were smuggled out at the beginning of it or they were away at school or whatever happened. They were in some kind of refugee camp before they came back. Yeah. And so there's that problem. I think the kids are a big problem with me. I think the movie would have been better without them. But
then you wouldn't have the father being, you wouldn't have Don.
But I think you could have eliminated the kids and had him they could have made him a researcher and they could have had him going back and he went back to his home for those memories and found her. So Keith is right. The children, aside from, the boy having the weird thing that the mother has, and potentially him.
Yeah,
becoming...
it's because he had two different color eyes. So we're saying that. So if David Bowie was alive today, that he would have the right virus.
I forgot about
all
the
Huskies
eyes.
are fine. Apparently, all Huskies will never get this.
Yeah. So. And Jane Seymour would be fine.
Yeah.
But Dr. Quinn's medicine woman, she won't be.
I liked that show.
So yeah, I mean, I agree. It's weird. The children were problematic for a few reasons. They tried to use them as tools to kind of move
the story
along, and I felt like you didn't need them. I felt like you said, Keith, it could have been that he finds her, brings her back, and they do study. It's him trying to protect her, and then what that scene leads to him kissing her, and then it creates.
Well, those kids get everyone killed. I mean, those kids are the reason. Everyone that came in contact with those children died. Every single one of them.
Yeah, I felt especially sad for what was
even the end with even the end of the helicopter pilot who gets them out. He ends up dead as well.
Yeah.
Those
Which,
kids
by the way,
everyone.
that was a badass scene, though. I mean, that
was.
The helicopter scene was like, okay.
With the blades when he's trying to
clearly we know where the money went for this movie. Like,
that was a great scene, though. That was excellent.
And another problem I have with this film as well is that once they're like, okay, we need to evacuate, we need to, control the outbreak sort of thing. And they put all these people downstairs, and the way that they're acting, it's like, you guys just lived through where 99% of the population on the UK basically have been killed off. Everyone that you've known and come in contact with, even if you do 6 degrees of separation, you probably got thousands of people that you personally know have gone. And then they're acting like this is just happening for the first time in their lives. The way they were acting is just like, why are you acting that way?
Those were American soldiers, though.
No, we're not talking about them. We're talking about the people, the actual people living in the compound.
I just think that also too, I would think that if you're hurting to protect people, you're not putting them in the fucking garage. I'm sorry, but like, what the hell? Like, I get if something is happening and apparently the general, code red and everyone jumps into action. Wouldn't you start locking down corridors to make it harder for that contagion?
Well, didn't they do that though? They tried to do that.
Apparently not, because that father got to them like no problem. Like
didn't the little boy let the father in?
No,
because I saw him outside the door and I saw the little boy looking at him, and then
he burst through the door. So I don't know.
Obviously, it's not a very good lock.
So that's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's like, wouldn't you at some point go? It had to origin here, meaning we know that the wife was here and this is where it started. So now we're going to lock every single door and push everyone to the opposite of where that is, right? The farthest away from where everyone, it just to me was like, okay. And so then when all the lights go off, I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. Now let's shut all the lights off. So now people can't see where they are. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what? No.
Well, another thing is, and then Don, at the end of the day, Don is a caretaker. He's a caretaker. He's not a science biologist. He doesn't, basically he's a caretaker. He cleans, he's a custodian. That's what they say. Oh, so you're a custodian or a cleaner then.
Something like that.
He goes, no, I'm a custodian. So how in the hell does he have free reign to be able to get into the fucking, and to see his wife?
Yeah,
that pissed me off.
He's got keys.
Remember, he can get in anywhere, and I was like, bullshit.
And apparently, he can get off the compound when he wants to as well. And I'm sorry, but we have domestic staff at work, and they can't get in anywhere. They can't. They have difficulty getting into ITU to clean it. Sort of thing. And you're thinking, huh?
I would also then think that when you bring something from the beyond the wall into this new safe place, there had to be so many protocols in place to bring that. They
would have to quarantine them for like at least
you would put them in like 15 different cages to lock to make sure that it's safe, right, for everyone else there. And the fact they just kind of leave her in the room, there's no scientist, there's just some guy who's like hanging out there. I'm like, what?
But even the people that are coming in from Spain, where the kids are coming in, I mean, they don't even quarantine them either. They check their eyes. Okay, you're fine. Yeah. It's like, well, don't you think you quarantine them? I mean, God, we do that with Mexicans all the time, and you know what I mean?
Well, no, they do the whole eye test thing with the drops and all the stuff like that.
Yeah, but still, I mean, you just don't let them through. Do you still want to wait for these 24 to 48 hours?
It's a movie.
Yeah. I know, but there are little things like that. I do think that they could have paid a little bit more attention. And I do think that they do the kids in there
right.
go, oh,
I
let's do the
John's
average
character.
family, man. So that way, and to be honest, I think it's because this was made for an American audience and this is what it was geared to.
Yeah.
And I think that if it wasn't made with American money, the first one was made with British money and this one was made with American money. And I think that because it was made with American money and it wasn't done independent like the first one, I think too many of the businessmen got involved in the making of it.
And I think it was actually reading about it too. I think it was written differently too. And I think it was only after the studios got involved, it was kind of like, well, let's actually go this angle instead.
Let's develop the family in it. Let's develop
let's put this in. Let's have a love story, a little bit of a love story, because of, you have to have that.
There really wasn't a love story. You thought that maybe Tammy and Doyle were going to hit it off, but they didn't.
No, I'm talking about love between the family, meaning the sister protecting the brother and the mother, because there is that heart of the story. Like, you want this family unit to get back together again. She's alive, but she's infected now. How is that gonna, And
I thought they should have shot her as soon as they found her.
I thought she was infected when I saw her the first time.
I actually do agree that I would have been like the doctor, put her into a space that would, you could study her, because she is mutated. Like, she's not enraged. So you would want to find a cure from her.
So is that why Don seemed more cognitive as an infected? Because he seemed like he was on a mission to get those kids. So.
Well, it was, because that was also the coincidence of him finding them down the road.
Well, there's a whole weird family dramatic dynamic going on there. Well, because let's face it, Don's name should have been Dick, first of all. Because basically,
Richard.
Because basically, he's the reason why his wife dies. He was all he cared about his own safety. All he cared about was himself. And then when his kid,
in that situation though, and say, could you? He would have gotten himself killed. It would have been one thing that if he was within arm's reach of her, or she,
he did. He shut the door. He shut the door on her, to get out. First of all, it's not like he left the door open. He jumped out the window and she wasn't there. He shut the door to barricade.
I hate to say it, I kind of would do the same thing, and I think we're hit.
Well, thank God we're not in a fucking relationship.
But I'm saying the dick move to me was that he lied about it. That was to me the dick move, to tell the kid, she got ripped apart, she died, and then they're like, what the hell?
He was a coward.
And he was like, well, I didn't say she died. I'm like, what the
what I would have much preferred is if something happens and the kids show up, and then she shows up at the gate on her own accord for sanctuary or to be part of this community.
Right.
Yeah.
That she wouldn't be. That's another thing. It's like, why is she spending how many weeks eating canned food when she knows when she would have known there's a complex that's going out? She must have known.
Well, she wasn't in her right mind either, probably.
Well, she was. But to be honest, she was cognitive. She understood. When they were talking to her, she was able to talk to him. She's go, what about my kids? And she could have a conversation. When he came in there, he goes, I'm so sorry. And she's looking at him and she says something to him. She knows what he's saying.
Well, she says, I love you. So she knows, like,
so she has cognitive, she was a bit batty because she hasn't seen anyone for 28 weeks. And
actually, that would have been a very interesting film, is to have someone who has survived and it almost be like a revenge film, meaning she was living in squander and living in this, this space, and then figured out a way to make herself blend in to get into that compound to get her kids, right? And then you realize, oh shit, she is still infected.
But I would just have her fighting her. Not even living in squalor, just fighting her way back to this community, and then she sees her ex-husband living fine and off the hog. Sort of thing. Is like, fuck him, sort of thing. And
now she gets enraged.
Or the simple fact that she sees him and they have this great big heart to heart, and they have an argument, and then finally she decides to forgive him, and then she kisses him, and then she does it she does it by mistake.
Well, that's what I figured where it was going. I thought she was.
I don't think she knew she was doing. Because when he started to turn, you could see. Oh God, she knew.
If she did know, she's stupid because she was tied to a fucking bed. So
that too.
If you're gonna turn someone, you might not want to be tied down.
Before you kiss me, can you release me real quick?
Well,
can I have your key card before I kiss you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you have a split eye, then you have a certain gene
Yeah, and I think the science was a bit weak a little bit on this one, but I mean, but if you turn your mind off to it, I mean, it's a rip-roaring movie to watch, but you do have to turn your mind off to it because there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense. That kind of, and the kids. I mean, I guess the problem basically is if you're going to follow a story, and you want these kids to survive, you need to root for the kids. And unfortunately, I was rooting for the infected.
Correct. I was too. I was like, I hope they get devoured at this point because I really just don't. I mean, after each person keeps dying for them, I was like, okay.
Well, yeah.
Like the military guy who's like, I gotta get out and push the car. I was like, oh Jesus! Like this poor guy, like it gets burned alive. Like he's like a little s'mores, you know.
He didn't. I guess he had to do that though, if he was going to be. I don't know.
Well, he needs to get to. Well, let's face it. I mean, this. Now another problem for me with this film is living in London and the way that they went. And if you know anything about London, you've been to London before, but they go from Docklands, they go to Queen Park, back to the Docklands, back to Tottenham Court Road, then they go back to St. Paul's. And the thing is, they're all over the place in this map sort of thing. It's like, there's no way. And they're walking to all these places. Like, you know, if you're walking from Leicester Square to St. Paul's, it takes a good hour and a half. But they're crossing these great big. At one point, they're supposed to be at Regent's Park, not Regent. They're supposed to be going to Regent's Park, and they're in Hampstead Heath, which is 6 miles out of the way. I don't know where they were. So Isaac and I are going, where the fuck? I mean, how the frick are they getting? And then they're back in the car, and then they're like, then they go in the car, and then they're back in like West End, London, and like. Why do they go all the way from Hampstead where I work? So why do they go all the way to Hampstead? And Regent's Park's between these two places. And then they end up in the West End. It's like, where in the hell are they now?
I would think, like, wouldn't someone who is, like, writing this go, unless there are locations that you need in order to film, to be like if you said, we're going to go from a compound to a hospital to a mall to a whatever, wouldn't you say we need to geographically do this right? Because like people who are from London is going to go, what the hell is this? Like I would think someone
I think the only other film that I've ever saw that was such a misrepresentation of London was 101 Dalmatians, the live action one. Because there's one, when he's on that bike ride, he's like, he goes from Trafalgar Square to Green Park, and then he's over here, and then he's over here, and it's just like, he made like a complete star before he actually meets up with Natasha Richardson's character. And you're like, it's like, God almighty, where did this dog run to? But it was a little bit like that. But yeah, so if you're living in London, that was a bit annoying because I mean, Isaac and I were watching, going, like, what the hell's going on?
I would also like the way that it ends. It kind of doesn't. To me, I guess it leaves you with the assumption that the child that is with them causes a next outbreak in Paris, or is it that
aren't they mutant children like the mother? They're like the mother.
Well, but the mother could carry this.
So the child could carry too.
He got bit by by Dawn.
Yeah.
Dawn the Dick got bit by Dawn the Dick, and
by the way, they got blood splatter all over. So I'm assuming the sister must have turned at some point because she's either going to kiss him or
didn't he bite the sister?
No,
when she was hugging him.
No, they go walking off, and they go. I mean, this is another thing. They're somewhere in
this tube.
Well, yeah, they're on the tube, and for some reason they make it to Wembley, which is like a day and a half walk to Wembley Stadium. Anyway, but they make it there in plenty of time. They're walking through the tube on the tube tunnels. The tube tunnels are underneath the ground, so it's like, and the infected are attracted to nighttime. What are you doing walking along I don't know. And another thing I don't understand is and I mean, I'm picking this movie apart. I did enjoy this movie, I promise you, but there's things that really drive me at the wall. The thing is, like, okay, you need to kill everybody because we don't know who's infected and who's not. And then they're like, sniper shooting. Why don't you just throw grenades at everyone? It'd make more sense to try to sniper like 50 people in a row.
Well, yeah, they probably could have done
I play Call of Duty. I know it's harder to sniper people when
I was going to say, I'm like, anyone who's a gamer who sits here and goes, oh my God, there's no more than like 100 people. That would have been easily to be taken out. Like literally, it's like, Yeah,
just throw a grenade at them. If you're gonna fire them up anyway, wouldn't you just throw a grenade? You're not gonna start snipering. First of all, if they go just sniper the infected, fair enough, you use a sniper gun. But when they got to point, just kill them all. It's like you're not gonna still sniper them. It's like fine, you just take out bombs and go poof 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 down on the street.
Yeah, exactly. Or again, I would just think it leaves too many questions to ask, right? So the first one, you didn't really have many questions to ask because you were just going along with the story. This, because there's almost this like perimeter of where things are right and wrong, right? Like, oh, well, we have the military and they're protected and we have this, right? And this, but you start asking questions and that's what the problem is with this film. Like, it is a great film, but at the same time, I end up asking all these questions.
The military is going to fuck this up.
I mean, that's another thing for American military and what we've known, whether you've seen Bourne Supremacy or any other American military film, you know that what normally is their downfall is the strict protocols that they have in place.
Yeah.
And they didn't have strict protocols in place. I mean, the thing is, this woman's locked up. They go, okay, we need to destroy her. We can't let her live. Therefore, she's too dangerous to be in the compound. And then they leave her unguarded.
Yeah, that
you know what I mean? And it's like, obviously anyone can go in and see the kids who are supposed to be quarantined off, and they can go see the wife who's quarantined off. And they had like one army guy who goes running off. Robert Carlyle bites him, and then he goes running back and starts screaming at the kids, sort of thing. So you're kind of going, what? So it didn't. That's another thing. Is like, where's all the closed doors, all the corridor shots, all the locked doors that you would have? But
that's what I'm saying. They say they have. It's almost like there's also a level of with the army, the over arrogance and cockiness about them, because they're all like even joking about, wow, it's so boring. There's nothing to do. Oh, and they're like joking around and like hanging out. You would think, again, let's wait till we know that there isn't a threat, meaning they feel like there's no threat, but then let's wait till we actually constantly know there's no threat once things are back to normal again.
After 6 months, you probably would be a bit complacent. But before you became complacent, there has still been all these protocols with locked doors and locked.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Or
that would have been built in until you got to that complacency.
Correct. That's what I mean. It's like you're complacent, but then at the same time, when it's like, oh God, it's not a drill, everyone. Oh my God, it's not a drill. Okay, now we have to wait. What is the plan again? Like, I don't know what the plan is, and you're like, what?
I guess another thing, maybe, I work, as you know, I work in a hospital, and my pass that I have to wear around my neck every day it gets me into wards. It has to get me into labs. It has to get me wherever I have to go, and everything is locked off. It's like I can't walk. There's not places that I can walk around freely except in the common areas. Everything else is locked off. So that's why I guess when I'm watching this, but then again, I do. So therefore, it's almost like, I think the first script for the first movie was very, very well thought of, and they thought, okay, and I think this one was like, I don't know. It's almost like it doesn't matter. We just want a roller coaster ride, and sort of thing. And I guess if we didn't have the two films together, it might have been a different. If this film came out on its own, maybe I probably wouldn't be taking.
Well, they almost left off like they were going to try to do another one.
They are doing another one. They started talks last year.
Yeah, it's still on the fence, and it'll be.
What is this going to be? 28 months later?
Yeah, it is. And this, I think, what they're trying to look at is now a global, not just centralized in one area, or it's going to be. This is a bigger problem than what we thought it would be, right? And so,
yeah, I think another thing with this film, I think that might be might put the spanner in the works for this film, is that the original sequel was supposed to have Cillian Murphy and Naomi Harris and the little girl, and where they were 28 weeks later in this compound. And I think because those actors' career took off phenomenally well after this, is that they weren't available. Yeah. So it's like, okay, now we have to come up with a whole new group of people. And I think that if we had the connection between the first and the second film, I think we would have probably had a slightly different script that probably would have worked better.
I mean, I also just think in general, having people who had survived the first encounter would have made it feel different, because the problem that I think I just had with this is the people that came into that compound didn't feel associated with the events of the first movie at all. they just felt like vacationers. Like, welcome to Club Club whatever. Hope you enjoy it. We just had this little incident a couple, weeks ago. I hope you guys will enjoy your stay. That's what it felt like. It didn't feel like, wow, we just survived this incident. It would have been interesting even if they had an ancillary character from the first one, which I don't know if I can even recall someone else had survived. But
they could have. They could have brought Cillian Murphy or
Right.
Naomi Harrison for a day.
A cameo, yeah.
And basically just have her working in the background, working in a cafeteria or something, or doing something. Because where did they go? They must have been at this compound.
Yeah.
This is the only compound
that
in
plane
England.
was from Finland. It was finished. It was a finished pilot in the first one that was going through. I don't know how Finland got involved with the UK, but
no. Well, they probably won't now that Brexit's happened. So
no one's going to save your ass.
You're on your own now. Bye.
Yeah, we still got America. They're always there for us. But,
that's debatable.
Yeah.
Debatable.
But I will give kudos to the performances. I think the performances are very, very good. Outside, the kids are annoying. I don't think there's anything you can do about them. But
I love Rose Byrne though.
Yeah, Rose Byrne is. She can't do wrong for me. Yeah, I love
but this
her.
was their first movie.
Oh, interesting.
Was it?
I didn't know that. Didn't she do series? Didn't she do television before?
This is before Damages.
Oh, okay.
This what got her the role in Damages. Which was her first.
Which I love that. Have you ever watched that series? Oh my god, I love that series. Love that. So good.
And then Jeremy Renner, who's now become a star in his own right. This is his first film. Idris Elba, another one who started out in this film, and Catherine McCormick.
Yeah.
These people all got their start in this film. So it's quite interesting from that point of view to see these people who just started in their career looking extremely young as well. But
right.
So,
because none of them had dialogue that was annoying. It was, I think it just, to me, the fault of this film is the
timing.
It just begs to ask too many questions. And I think sometimes I think the difference of the first one too is look how many people were in the first one, not that many. Right. If you look at the second one, because there's so many more people involved in the military, the survivors, this family, the doctor, there's so many elements to where it leads you to ask questions when you're on an island and you have a guy who is waking up from a coma that he meets a girl. Well,
I love this movie, but now that you guys have ruined it for me, I'm going to have to go back and watch it again.
And it sucks. The next time you hear Vicky, you should be like, no. And I won't say that. I don't think it.
Oh, it was a good movie. There's no doubt. But yeah,
it definitely takes you on a roller coaster.
You do raise some good questions, though. I mean, those were good observations, really. And
I do love the first scene. And
I love that. That was fantastic.
The first scene was fantastic with them.
The farmhouse.
Well, where they're just kind of preparing a meal, and there's little said, right? Like she looks at a picture, you clearly see she has children, right? And the exposition of that scene was such a really well written scene.
Then he gives her the heave ho.
I don't think so. I still take that different because I think in that instance, could he have tried to save her? Yes. Would he have died?
That was a family member, one of my children, though. I would have. I don't know something. I would have fought like hell.
I guess another thing. The thing is I think what the saving grace of that scene is that when he gets to the boat and he's about to sing, and then he has to fight them off there.
Yeah.
And then one of them probably would have died there, but I think
one of them does because that guy tries to get in the boat with him.
Yeah, and he tries to help him too, but he ends up getting, he gets taken.
But they're in the water. They must have been Olympic swimmers too. These infected.
I was curious about that character because didn't he get infected? I thought the guy who was trying to get the boat was in.
No, he didn't know what was going on at the house. He was totally oblivious. This character.
Oh, I thought he was in the house with them.
No.
This is another thing as well that we got that in the first movie they only come out at night and now they're out in the daytime.
That's true.
They're evolving.
Yeah, that's true.
Evolving.
Well,
but then again,
but in the first one, they're out during the day too.
They're saying that you don't go anywhere at night. You travel during the day. That's the rules of the first movie, and this one they're kind of. And then I guess another thing is that we have to sit there and say that when Cillian Murphy's character in the first one get rescued, we see that they're starving to death and that most of them are died out.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a bit, and they said, because they said 28 days later from the end of that movie, that's when they get rescued, isn't it? Because they go 28 days later, and then you see the plane coming.
Yeah.
And this is 28 weeks later, so wouldn't most of the infected just been starved to death?
No, that's what they do say. They do say they starved to death. That's why they were able to get it under control. All of them had died. And so now it's just a matter of going to the houses and making sure none of them were alive and clearing the houses out and clearing debris and all that stuff. Yeah. Re-sanitizing to make sure that's
kind of Standish a little bit too.
Yeah. Yeah. So that I thought was interesting because that makes sense. Is again, they're not zombies. They're not eating to stay alive. They are just attacking, and then they run out of nutrition and then they die.
They're just like attacking people for shits and giggles. They're just
it's like,
very,
if you think about it,
angry zombies.
Well, so you think about it, it's like an animal with rabies, right? And it's hacks, and it's
they don't know what they're doing. They just they're vicious. They're just doing on you.
Or distemper. You think an animal gets distemper too is another psychological.
I do think that if it, and I think this is what we have. This is where we have problems with sequels anyway. Where you have like a small movie that does extremely well. And then when they do a sequel, they need to open it up and add more into it. And they throw so much into the pot that sometimes it's,
too many cooks in the kitchen ruin the soup.
Yeah, it can kind of ruin it a little bit. I mean, I think that's why if we this is not a zombie film, but if we use the template for zombie films that George Romero, I think that's probably the reason why his original trilogy worked so well, because he kept his crew quite small, his cast quite small, didn't he? Whether it's Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead. So they all kept his crew, his cast very small, sort of thing. Yeah. And I think this one has got so many people that you're trying to work around.
Yeah.
They, and then it does work best when you do get, Jeremy Penner's and Rose Byrne's characters on their own, and then that starts to get a better again. At first, it's a bit confusing, but I mean, overall, it's a fun film. It's just that it doesn't hold up very well next to the
first one.
The first one. That's the problem. Yeah. I think if it came out on its own, it was a totally different animal altogether. Probably
possibly. I liked it.
And I think also just the stylistics of the first one I liked more. They tried to incorporate a little bit into the sequel, but I think if they even stuck with the darker grittiness of it, it would have helped lean into what the first one was like to me.
I'd be interested to see what they come up with as a third installment.
I think if Danny Boyle and Alex Garland get back on board, and it's them. I think another thing is they did farm this out to a Spanish director as well,
right?
Who that might have not had the same assimilation to the English language and the way things are in England and that sort of thing. That probably has a thing to it. And then, of course, whenever studio heads get involved in the making of a movie, sometimes, that can make things go sideways.
Right.
So,
it would be interesting if they do you call it 28 Days B and be like before. So it would be a prequel. I think it actually would be smarter to do a prequel than a sequel.
Yeah, actually, that is kind of interesting.
Because I want to know sort of if they can.
How did it start?
Or even if it was broader, right? Because we have a conflicting story of the first one versus the second one. That it was here, it wasn't here, it was everywhere.
Technically, now we all know that it is possible to spread globally something like that. Yeah. So
there's actually a game. There's a game that is it's a simulated game of epidemia, like something spread, how you can spread and what causes the spread of a virus and all that, and how it mutates and things like that. So yeah,
the pandemic.
Pandemic, yeah, that's it.
A pandemic. So.
Yeah, who'd have thought it?
What we'll do is we're at the part of our show where we're going to talk about both films and which one did you like better and why. Starting with John.
I'm obviously going to say the first one because the first one to me was like even the church scene and like the priest and
with the priest. Yeah,
you know what it is like that. The way that it's shot too. You're I just like that there's a weird cut of sound that happens and it gets really quiet and you see this mad rush of this person who's infected with the rage coming at them, and then the sound just amps up, right? And I think that's something that I haven't seen anyone else use since then, and I think it's a really cool tool to like make you jump. I
forgot about the church. That was an awesome scene.
Oh yeah, and again, it shows you it shows. I think we've talked about this before in the past. When you get into a situation where it's an end of the world, pandemic or epidemic that's happening, what do humans do? So minus what's happening with the actual disease and how people are infected, but how do the people react? So you have people who have, parents who committed suicide, a church that literally is like, we're just going to end it now and go with God. And so it like the first one leaves you just to think and ponder on the human decisions. And then the second one, to me, I wish it would have had a different story without the kids. I think it would have been a little bit more, you're still trying to figure things out, but at the same time, the more people interacted, the more questions you asked. So
kind of like season 7 of The Walking Dead, you're starting to get disappointed.
No, I mean, even I gave up on that too, because you knew that you got to know too much of a relationship because they were going to kill them off, right? And sometimes
nobody knew that they were going to kill all the main characters off that last season, though. That just came as like, whoa! They just said you're going to die, and that's what they did. We're like, holy shit!
Kill them all before they ask for a raise.
It's a formula though, because I feel like it's just you get to a point where how many more people can we kill? We can kill these 7 people off. We can, and it just like
Glenn. Were you watching it when Glenn was under the dumpster?
He was
for like
6
months. Everybody was trying to figure out if Glenn was still alive and how, with a slide rule, could he still be alive under the dumpster?
Well, not to acquiesce. That's why I stopped watching that show for that reason, because you had such a character that endured so much and went through so much, and you still gave him the faith that he didn't.
The comic books gave him that faith.
And so, like in that instance, like with this type of film, I loved the first one because you really didn't know if they were going to survive. They made a
comic out of this, I believe.
I think they made a graphic one, right?
Graphic novel.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there is a possible sequel. You guys weren't kidding me.
Yeah. Definitely the first one over the second one, but second was still good. If you want the whole Hollywood amped up version of the first one, you get.
Yeah, Hollywood tends to screw independent film.
It just amps it up. It amps it up. Like, let's put them in the dark. Now let's put a helicopter, and let's not it's always amped up to what it needs to be,
Well, the one helicopter scene was good though, where it's like the blades are like chopping.
That was the best part about this. I think the sequel was that helicopter scene and just like lawnmower.
I thought he was going to crash. That made me happy too.
Yeah.
And what about yourself, John?
But you asked me.
Me. Me. It's me.
Oh, it's yours. Oh, so sorry. I couldn't remember.
That's all right. I know y'all just ignore me anyway. No, I liked both of them equally, but now that you guys brought up stuff that I didn't really, equivocate in my little brain on 28 Weeks Later. There were some things that, the kids, without the kids, I think you couldn't have had Crazy Don, who had some kind of weird thing going on for his family. I don't know if he was a different kind of strain, because we all know viruses deviate. So, but I thought I liked it because of him, because he was an intimidating looking countenance in this movie. That's why I liked this one a lot. He was scary. Just seeing him in the dark, he was just the persona of evil, and I'm going to jack your ass kind of stuff. He was just scary looking. If I saw somebody like that, I would probably pee my pants if something like that was charging me in like the New York subway or something, But he was the best part of the movie. I like Doyle, and I liked Rose Byrne in this too, because she was really good in this. You could tell that she definitely was going to show promise in this. But the first one, it was the beginning, and I will give you that. The beginning, like sequels always tend to fall by the wayside. Like you say, when you get big money in it and stuff, they do fuck up a film, to put it bluntly. Don't Hollywood up the movie too much in an independent film, especially, because they do screw it up. But I think they're both great. If you're into that, in the infection, quarantine, flu type scenarios, they're both actually great movies. I've watched them 2 or 3 times a piece, and I still love them. Like I said, I like Don. Don's man. He's scary. I'm just telling. The first time I seen the ad for that, I was watching it like it was like Amazon, you know, they run the ads sometimes for the movies, and they just showed his face, and it's like, oh God, that's scary. What is this? You know,
it's funny. It's funny that he plays a coward and he ends up landing the role on Once Upon a Time.
Vicious.
And Rumpelstiltskin, his character, how he becomes Rumple is he's a coward, and he takes the lower, lesser rural road, and it ends up becoming.
He definitely did not take the high road. He was a coward. I mean, if that's your wife, I mean, I don't know, you know, about relationships. Well, if it was my ex-husband, I would have said fuck him too. but
or your children, you know.
They were just smooching and preaching their undying love, and he just throws her to the wolf.
It would have been an amazing scene if he was running and like he actually picks up the cat and saves the cat and leaves her to die.
But they were both good movies. I mean, like I said, I've been in my little Facebook horror groups and stuff, and we were talking about them. And a lot of people love these two movies. They really do. They think they're great. So they're great movies. You know, people, you watch it, you won't be disappointed. So,
I mean, for me, I prefer the first one. The reason why I prefer the first one is because you have your prologue, and then we pretty much are living the life of the Cillian Murphy character, and you're seeing everything through his eyes. And so you're waking up into like this odd world, and you're going through the whole motion. So you actually feel like you're doing it yourself, sort of thing, which I quite liked. And that's why I quite like 28 Days Later, because you kind of living the experience along with the main character, and you're along with the main character a lot. It's very rare that you're actually seeing anything without the main character,
right?
Sort of thing, and I quite like that. The second one, it's fine. I think that I watched them back to back, which I think that if I didn't see them back to back, I might have more of an affiliation for the second one. But I do find that there's no one I really connected with. It's like, okay, I like the violence, I like the gore, and I like the set pieces that are in it. But as far as the whole film, I wasn't really invested in any of the characters. I couldn't care if any of them lived or died.
Oh, I didn't really care either. Everybody was, expendable in this movie. I mean, I didn't form any massive allegiance to them.
I mean,
I think the only one that I liked was the doctor. She was the only one that I was like, oh,
yeah. But there's some things in it that don't make sense. Like, I mean, another thing that bothers me about this film, and the thing is, I watch Dark Shadows, so bloopers go on around me, and I don't notice them. Okay.
Well, they're so numerous in Dark Shadows. That's why.
Yeah,
but I'm saying what blooper? Now I'm like curious.
No, it's not bloopers. But what I'm sitting there saying is that I tend to go along with it and not notice anything. And if I'm involved in the story, I can oversee it and I don't overthink. This one made me question a lot of stuff. And that's why that means I'm not lost in what I'm watching. That means I'm actually I might be slightly bored, so I start questioning things.
Well, that's what happens. You get pulled out of the film, and that's what I try to tell my friends. When you start to analyze films, if a good film doesn't allow you to get pulled out of it, right? So if you're always questioning, you're now taking a step back and trying to figure out, well, what is this and why is this? Yeah.
And I had this problem when I saw this at the theaters as well. The same problem with this movie. So it's not because we're doing the podcast. I've always had a problem with this movie. And like for instance, like they're going down the escalators, right? And then the kids fall down so they go tumbling down. Where in the hell do they tumble down to? Because they're like miles away from anyone else. You know what I mean? It's like if you tumble down a staircase, you're at the bottom of the staircase. You don't go tumbling out into the tunnel. It's just little things like that kind of irritated me a little bit. So, and I said before, I think that if you're gonna have I think if you're going to have a protagonist in a movie and, for whatever reasons, you're good. I know that, he saved himself and stuff like this, but then how are you supposed to feel about him when he gets his children back and, and this situation happens to him? Because like, it's kind of hard to feel a little bit of remorse for this guy. When he gets bit, you're thinking, you fucking deserved it.
Oh yeah, you don't feel sorry for him at all. If anything, you're like, you're an idiot. I mean, you're just like, you're an idiot because
I didn't feel sorry for him at all. Yeah. He was a douche. He left his wife to die. You're supposed to. He was.
But then you get the kids who actually caused all this stuff to happen, and then they're supposed to be rooting for them. But the thing is, like, they should have died first. To be honest, they should have been. Because they snuck out, they should have left them fucking outside the compound because they just endangered everyone.
Yeah.
And why would you take someone who's obviously infected and bring them into the compound anyway? It's just little things like that always nickel with me.
But I think they wanted to study her, I guess.
Well, study or whatever. The thing is there's just a lot of stuff in this movie that, for me personally, unfortunately, I find difficult.
I would also think too, they would have gunned her down. They wouldn't have asked, "Hey, are you alive?" No, they would have been like, "Kill her." They would have gunned her down and been like, "Sorry, we don't know what you are or what it is."
Especially like the kids come running out of the house looking like they were just being attacked.
Yeah.
And then
you would have gunned them down.
True.
And blonde-haired kids who look like mentally retarded reproductions of Charlie Bucket from Willy Wonka. I mean, it's like,
all Keith was thinking about is a little boy from the road, Papa.
Oh yeah,
shit.
He irritated me as well, and the sister irritated me because there's nothing appealing about them. That's the thing. Is just, if you're gonna root for people. I mean, to be honest, I was rooting for the infected most of the time.
Same.
It's like, let's see the infected kill other people. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to see. And the thing is, the other film, I didn't want the infected to harm these people I cared about. And when the father gets infected, I was like, oh no. It's like, a bit like Anna in Apocalypse when the character gets bit.
Oh yeah.
And you're going, oh no. And that's what you want. And this one is like, oh, just kill them fucking all. I just want to see carnage. And that's my problem with 28 Weeks Later. It's a good film. I mean, it's better than a lot of other films out there. But because they're one of the same. This is kind of like, it's like the Omen trilogy. I like Omen 1. I love Omen 1. Omen 2 I do like. But the third one was like, eh.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. I can't even watch it. I watched it maybe once or twice, and I
could see Sam Neill's naked body a little bit, but that's probably about the only thing worth
big
it.
Deal.
I like it when she's she's taking the iron and she's killing her baby with the iron. I quite like that bit. But anytime you're killing babies, it's
that was pretty cool. I have to admit, I forgot about the iron scene. She's sitting there, just she's ironing her husband's shirt, and all of a sudden she just Stepford wives it and goes over to the thing, just hits the baby with that hot iron. My maternal instincts only go so far in horror movies.
Whether it is 28 days or 28 weeks, your crew at the Literary License Podcast is always here to continue to provide you with some contagious content. As a reminder, you can head on over to our website at llpodcast.com to check out all of our social and podcast platforms, listen to all of our past episodes, become a patron, and sign up to our monthly newsletter to read our reviews of books to screen and everything in between. Coming up on our next episode, the team will give you their bloody reviews of the Dark Shadow series. As always, we'd like to thank you for downloading, liking, and sharing the Literary License Podcast. Stay safe out there, folks. Bye.
Bye, buddy.
Damn. Do what you want, don't dirty me. Hurry me, 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 hurry me. Do what you want, don't dirty me. The waves dripping in the sacks, lost in the haze, can't tell me nothing. Waiting for the waves dripping in the sacks, lost in the haze. No, you can't tell me nothing. Tonight, you're my night, tonight. you're my night. Tonight, tonight, you're my night. 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 Tonight, tonight, you're my night.
You gon' bury me. You gon' bury me.
Hurry me, 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 hurry me.
Yeah. I heard you wanna fuck on the dope boy, and then the X-Man was a broke boy. Bitch, you better bury that nigga, bury that nigga, once you carry that nigga. Cause I be in the trap with a bird. Just the pussy like a pound, I'ma serve it. When I put a shovel out, I'm tryna bury that. And I'm killing pussy, yeah, murderer.
Lunchtime. Hurry me, do what you want, don't dirty me.